webcast audience.
I'm a senior here from Indonesia, and I have a few questions about what you think the younger generation cares most about in Southeast Asia, especially with regards to politics, given that there's a lot of things going on with climate change, AI, supply chains. I'm curious about what you think would be most impactful as a politician in order to get the young vote in Thailand.
I'm an alumni from Stanford International Policy Program, and I am from Myanmar. I'm a Burmese activist. Stuck here after the coup. I wanted to ask questions about, the situation of Myanmar. Obviously, the severe dire situation spills over to Thailand, and there's a lot of needs that need to be done in Thailand-Myanmar border. And as an activist, I've worked with a lot of Thai activists and also civil society in Thailand, worked with Move Forward Party in the past as well. I want to, especially now that with the ACAT and all of that, there's a lot more needs, and I want to know, who are the stakeholders that are will be most effective for us to engage in, and what is the future sort of that you see in terms of the situation in Myanmar? What is the, how does the political situation and other things will help or hurt anything that relate to our communities? Thank you.
I'm an MBA 1 student from Stanford GSB, and I'm a student from Laos. I wanted to ask, let's say if you're interested in politics, but we want to, how can we build up some skill sets or network along the way, and especially in a non-democratic government system, perhaps? Thank you.
Okay, so 3 questions, right? The first one was from Indonesia. I'm about to find out next month, so that's what I'm speaking at the university, meeting with the younger generation of Indonesians, so I'll be able to answer you directly. But I felt from my office hours, from all the Southeast Asian students that I engage with, I felt like they're looking for representation. They're really looking for a party that could represent them. And a lot of Indonesian students, that's why I told Minister, when they come to me, they ask, so how much does it cost to form a political party? If I were to start a new party, what do I need to do and how much would it cost? And that comes a lot from Indonesia and comes a lot from the Philippines for some reason. So it's not like, Singaporeans or Thai, if I want to run for public office, what do I need to do, the skill set that I need to have? But for some reason, it's repetitive that it's Indonesian students and the Philippines said there's no political party that represent me. Whether it's probably about education, about the future of esports, the future of entertainment businesses and things like that. How can they make a living with the upcoming trends in Indonesia? And they felt like there was no representation in the party, so they all wanted to start new parties. So I guess, the answer, a quick one, would be a representation that represented the youth within Southeast Asia. Question number 2 was about the situation in Myanmar. I think for Thailand, we have to justify to the Thais that what happened or what's happening in Myanmar matters to Thailand, that we are sharing the border of almost 3,000 kilometers. If Myanmar coughs, Thailand gets sick, whether it's through transboundary haze from corn burning, whether it's the scam operation that is going on right now. And if you don't intervene or if you don't find the right amount of pressure or incentive to make sure that the stakeholders in Myanmar get together, Thailand will have a problem, especially refugee management, the public health situation along the border. 2 years ago, I couldn't say this. People will say, you are a Thai politician, why would you care about Myanmar? Just focus on taxpayers' money in Thailand. But now, we're starting to have that kind of justification that Thais or my constituents would understand that I'm a Thai politician working for Thailand, and I have to fix the problem at the source, at the origin, not the byproduct of it. So it's becoming quite a thing now. It's too late though, because of 5-point consensus is a 5-point bullets now with what happened. If back in the days, it's been almost 4 years, February 1st, 3-4 years. if the ASEAN leaders at the time, including Thailand, had that kind of political will to turn 5-point consensus to 5-year roadmap through troika of leadership from Laos to Malaysia to the next country. It's alphabet order. I can't think of it now. But that, you know what I mean? There's some continuity of leadership, and Thailand gets involved. I felt like we would have find the right amount of pressure and incentive, and finally understanding comprehensive views of what the military is thinking, what NUG is thinking, what NLD is thinking, and all the 15 ethnic groups were thinking. But it's dead. You know, it's pretty 5-point consensus is pretty much dead. And what's happening now is the Chinese, you know, coming in because of the scam operation and the scam bosses being in. So we started to see some assistance or some support of the Chinese government inside Thailand, inside of Myanmar, some release of the scam victims in Philippines, in Indonesia, in Thailand, in Ethiopia, in South Africa, starting to do. Whether that's only a project, a transactional project from the Chinese side, it remains to be seen from now, whether it's only a one-time thing that they want to improve the reputation of the Chinese, and they felt like, you know, Malaysia couldn't do the job, Thailand couldn't do the job. It's been around for a long time after COVID, and it has to be the Chinese who takes care of this problem, which is something that we have to thank them for. But going forward in the future, because ASEAN couldn't get it together for so many years, and maybe it has to be some other country, some major superpower that gets inside and intervene, especially on the, not so much on the Pacific Ocean side, but on the Indian Ocean side, where there's gas pipelines all the way to Yunnan from Bengal, Gulf of Bengal, and 4 or 5 years is not enough. Finally, you know, a way to get to the Indian Ocean through Myanmar, through Pakistan. It's something that might be a long-term, but I'm not accusing them. So it remains to be seen whether that's the case or not. But it's very much clear that from all the frontier states in Myanmar, whether it's Thailand, India, or China, the Chinese are stepping up, which is a good thing for the scam operation. But whether it's a transactional thing or something that is larger than that, that remains to be seen at the moment, especially after President Trump 2.0 as well. Whether it will be a geopolitical competition, for example. That's something that we have to wait and see. A student from Laos, you were asking about, can you remind me once again? It was about how to navigate to your political journey. First thing, you gotta be decisive first, whether it's a yes or a no, maybe. But I think, you know, in Southeast Asia, and if you want to run for public office, the first thing you have to do is you have to find a pain point that you want to fix. Whether in private sector or in a public sector, if you find that kind of pain point that you are focused about, that you are passionate about, you would be able to run for public office. You know, if it's like about you are passionate about the Mekong River management, you know, transboundary water management, environmental issues that comes from upstream, midstream, downstream dam, deforestation, carbon release, you know, all these things that you probably talk a lot about in this area. Find that pain point in your country and find the solution here, and you become the match. That's logic. I mean, like that's how you can get into public policy or politics. If you're interested in public policy, you are probably supporting from the back, you know, giving them knowledge, giving them network. But if you want to interested in politics, you become the MP that submits the bill and allocate the budget to get it fixed. So yeah, you gotta go see what keeps people awake at night in your town, and you'll be able to run. Cool. Okay, maybe
Yeah.
one more round.
I want to turn to questions from online audience, and I'll come back to you quickly.
We have Francesca Chapman from the University of Leeds in London. She asks, how do actors in Thai politics and society perceive and respond to shifting patterns of Chinese infrastructure development? And then we also have another question from Marcel Thiel from the University of Vienna. He asks, how do you see Thailand's role in the world in 10 years' time?
That's only two. Is there one more? Or maybe from the audience?
Yeah, maybe.
I'm from Thailand. I've been here for 40 years and follow the Thai politics a little bit. So this is wishful thinking. If you become a multi-billionaire in US dollar term, what can you do?
If I become, what would I do? What can I do? I'll become a senior fellow here at Stanford and retire and play a lot of squash, do a lot of yoga, maybe open a reggae bar in Samui where White Lotus is or have lots. For a question number two, what will be Thailand in 10 years' time? Two ways of answering that, macro and micro. Macro-wise, in 10 years' time, Thailand can still be the second largest nation in ASEAN after Indonesia with average growth rate of 4 to 5%. So we're still the second largest nation in ASEAN, a middle power with some decent growth rate. Or on the other hand, we could be number 5 in ASEAN because if you look at average growth rate, think like a GSB student now. If you look at average growth rate in the past 5 years, take that number and do a CAGR, a compound annual average growth rate, project that out. I did that. Singapore overall GDP will overtake Thailand in 2 years. And then it will be the Philippines. And then it will be Vietnam in 10 years. So 3 years, 7 years, or 10 years, I can't remember exactly, but I was doing it on my spreadsheet very quickly as an ex-investment banker that we are. So just if you take that historical growth rate in the past 5 years and project it out for 10 years, you will see that Thailand will drop from number 2 to number 3 behind Singapore, and number 4 behind the Philippines, and number 5 below Vietnam in 10 years. So that's the macro level that in 10 years, when I come back and speak here, hopefully as the Prime Minister, when I return from the ban, then hopefully that I could say that we are still the second largest nation in ASEAN with decent growth rate. We are the middle power together with Indonesia, Philippines, and Malaysia, and Singapore. Or I come here and look, we're no longer the second largest. We're number 5, just slightly above Cambodia, Laos, and Myanmar. That could be the case also. That's macro. And micro level, the future of Thailand will be comfortable for some and crisis for most, because the inequality will just keep going like the way it is. If you are from the top 1%, you'll be very comfortable. I think it was UBS that did a wealth inequality network that the number of millionaires increasing in 5 years. Thailand is like number 6 or number 7, 25% growth. Within the next 5 years, we'll have more millionaires, even ahead of Singapore, a little bit like below Taiwan. So they'll be very comfortable if you are in that cohort. But the remaining one, for most, it will be such a crisis that whether it's the climate change, whether it's the infrastructure issue, whether it's the aging society, whether it's the emergence of artificial intelligence that you don't have jobs anymore. So it will be crisis for most, if that's the case, in terms of family to family, micro level. The first question was from Leeds, I remember, but it was about shifting infrastructure, Chinese. So we saw a lot of that on the ground as a member of parliament in various places. And you cannot think of them as like an umbrella assessment. Some are good, some are bad. Bad in the sense that they don't do a lot of EIAs, they don't follow environmental issues that they should have in Thailand. And that happened a lot during the military coups. Like a lot of waste management company that couldn't be done in China anymore were moved over to Thailand. So that kind of shift of infrastructure is unwelcome, obviously, by the villages. I mean, if they wanted to use Thailand as the base for doing a lot of mining, doing a lot of waste management, then it's important that they follow the environmental issues here in Thailand. But the rules were changed by the military. For example, if you want to do turning waste into electricity, if it's below 10 gigawatts, you don't have to do EIA. So that's why the Chinese would come in at 9.9. So then they don't have to go through the assessment that usually you would have to go through. So it's not the Chinese fault, it's also Thai government's fault at the same time. But there's a lot of infrastructure in technology, in anti-corruption, security, things that were pretty useful to Thailand as well.
My name is Tara. I'm a junior in high school who's from Los Angeles. In your opinion, do you think like my generation and the generation after me have a future where we can go back to Thailand to work and also just like thrive? And to go along with that is like, what can I do as like a Thai American who is struggling to imagine a future where I can go back there?
I'm a medical student from Thailand. I'm still studying medicine, but I'm here at GSB to study a short program. What I can really do in terms of I am a medical student, and because I'm studying a dual degree with a master management, and they kind of want us to actually pursue of changes into public health policies in Thailand. I just wonder, like, what can I do? And making sure that we're not repeating the same mistakes like in the past that we have some doctors mob if we have already heard about that.
Professor of Political Science and a visiting fellow here. You mentioned the 3 M's in Thailand, and there are a couple of other factors that, because you're focusing nationally, fall out of that analysis, but are worth considering in the context of Southeast Asia broadly, and then also in Thailand. And that has to do with local politics as a stepping stone to national politics, and especially party building. Throughout Southeast Asia, and potentially also very much so in Thailand, you have a phenomenon, another M, of mayors who become national leaders. So Duterte and Jokowi as being the 2, most obvious ones. But this is really because of decentralization since the 90s in so much of Southeast Asia, local government has become a pathway. In Thailand, though, you have, if you go to Chiang Mai, it's a dynastic politics. And you see that throughout so much of Thailand. And again, it's a phenomenon growing throughout Southeast Asia of any leader has so many of their members of their family. It's no longer just a Philippines thing. This is a Southeast Asian way. And so I'm wondering your plans for developing political expertise, a party under a different name per the Thai model or something else, nationally, not just going for the national office, but also recognizing the potential of the local level to have real authority with the extent of decentralization there is in Thailand, but also the potential to grow leadership and have people who are ready to step up then to the federal level.
So 3 questions. First one was about Gen Z returning to Thailand or whether there's a future for them. A quick answer is yes, but you have to work for it. And you have to work it harder than my generation. Like you really need to be equipped with skills that is important to developing Thailand, to really improve the inequality in Thailand. You'll be able to survive if you think like that. I think that's like STEM education that is lacking, English proficiency that is lacking in the region, and being analytical, critical thinking, managing conflicts. I think that's something that if you prepare yourself, once you return, you'll be able to succeed and have that skills to work hard for it. In terms of public health policies and the gap in Thailand, whether it's structural level or also again micro level in terms of doctor shortages and things like that. I think the one that I got struck with the most as an opportunity for public health in Thailand is on Biosecurity Act here in America during Biden's time that does not allow American companies to invest in China anymore in terms of drug trial, vaccine invention, and research and development within the next 10 years. So where is the American companies going to go in terms of public health, in terms of medicine? It could be Vietnam, it could be Indonesia, it could be Malaysia, but also Thailand has a chance. So I think if you look at that from that perspective, there's so much opportunities for Thailand to take over and allow American companies to friendshore, given with what's going on here in America. Telemedicine is definitely a thing, an ability to manage patients by having a stronger primary care that could stop patients traveling into the center part of the secondary health unit. I think that will be able to help the public health system in Thailand. Thinking more about preemptive too, not just corrective, in terms of stopping patients' flow into the system, and while at the same time producing more doctors that work less than 40 hours per week. Because that's not a thing here in Thailand. They are overworked, both nurses and doctors. And if you look at the patient per doctor ratio in each of the provinces, you know exactly which to prioritize. I mean, I have it in my head which provinces needed kind of system and the kind of medical devices that are lacking that we could just buy from America and make sure that lack of access to medical device go down and manage a better relationship with the U.S. as well. Local politics, dynasty politics, local level politics. It's a three-part question, Professor. So I have to slice and dice it and to a manageable chunks. First of all, dynastic politics is not just Chiang Mai, though.
No, I didn't mean
It's all over Southeast Asia. You have Babong, you have Gibran, you have Pat Hong Tan, you have Hun Manet after Hun Sen as well. So and at the same time, you also have Bush, you also have Trudeau, you also have Abe as well. So it's not so much about the last name politics or coming in the family. What's more important is proxy leadership, because these are all rookie leaders, 20 years younger than their predecessors. So think Lawrence Wong and Lee Hsien Loong, think Hun Manet and Hun Sen. They are much younger, on average 20, 30 years younger. So they have that kind of opportunity to prove themselves. That dynastic politics is one thing, Nepo babies is one thing, but proxy leadership is the most important thing. That if something is happening today, the crisis is happening in country today, that they will be able to do it by themselves without calling their parents. I think that's something that the Southeast Asian leaders need to prove themselves in terms of proxy leadership. Local politics, centralization. The thing is in Thailand, Bangkok is still Thailand, Thailand is still Bangkok, whether you look at it as economic GDP level, whether in the budget level, because when it comes to decentralization, they probably decentralize roles and responsibility, but they don't decentralize tax autonomy. They don't decentralize manpower. They don't decentralize budgeting. So it looks like each of the districts in Thailand have the roles and responsibility of public education and public health, similar to Indonesia. But the budget doesn't go, the manpower doesn't go exactly to her question about public health. And also the mandate doesn't go. So it's not a true decentralization. It's still very much a centralized model in Thailand, especially that you have two sets of leaders. You have the one appointed by Bangkok and you have the one that is elected by the people. So you have two tigers in one cave. And that's why the decentralization in Thailand is still very far compared to any other countries in the world. Local politics, yeah, it's not orange to orange with national politics. National politics, they allow advanced voting, overseas voting, cross-registered voting, so the voting turnout is one thing. And you choose the leader of the country, you choose the prime minister. But for local politics, you cannot do advanced voting, you cannot do overseas voting, you cannot do cross-registered voting. If you are from Khon Kaen here in Stanford, you have to travel from California back to Khon Kaen to vote. So because of that, it's a different ball game, and the kind of voting turnout is not the same. The only province that we won, 73% voting turnout. The rest we lost. Just not the kind of game. But also hyper-local is something that we probably have to do in terms of local politics to really show people that the problem with everyday life situation can be solved not by people from Bangkok, but people who live next door to you. So that's something that we also have to develop different sets of candidates as well.
I'm a freshman from Myanmar, and as we both know, in both our countries, our militaries have an oversized role in politics and governance. Yet, Thailand is positioned as one of the leading economies of ASEAN, while my country remains at the bottom of the barrel. So, I just want to know, like, what are some fundamental differences that has caused such a big disparity between our countries, even though we have, similar militaries in a sense.
Hi. Oh, sure.
Hello,
Go ahead.
my name is Yasmin Wiryawan. I'm a visiting scholar at APARC. There are still gaps in women's economic participation and their role in politics in Thailand, and this is not unique in Southeast Asia and other parts of the world. So my question is, what would you do if you're in the government to reduce the inequalities? Thank you.
There was a lot of discussion earlier about the structural challenges to democracy in Thailand. I think you mentioned another one with the ethics committee that was formed recently. Given that winning election, winning the vote is not enough to hold power in Thailand, and we've seen that even before yourself with other prime ministers that won and all the coups that you discussed, what is the path to kind of breaking that cycle? How do we get to a state of democracy in Thailand where those who are elected stay in power and keep the power that they were voted in for?
Challenge you take two more.
Can do.
The last round.
If I remember them, I'm trying to take notes.
Hello, Kumpita. As a private citizen living here in the United States, but I've been closely watching the politics in Thailand. So you talk about the 3M and the 1M, the military, the monopoly, and the media. How do you get the 1M, the mass, to tip the scale? What are some of the steps that you think that, the grassroots level people, how would they go about? Because every day, all they talk about is the economy, because I think most of the people, they're worried about the day-to-day economy. They're worried about the debt that they're in. So how would you persuade them to focus on the future in terms of changing the military, the monarchy, or I'm sorry, the monopoly and the media? Because these guys, they're just not going to let it go. So what are some of the steps that you think the mass people should be doing?
Hi, I'm Pat. I'm an MBA student at the GSB. And one question that I would have would be the question on the rule of law of Thailand, because we know that it's not functioning. We have some selective justice happen. And if you have to do one thing for this future, to solve this future problem, what would it be that we can do now to solve that?
So it looks like if I answer question 5 will answer question 3. And if I answer question 4 will answer question 3 also. Okay, so how should I structure this? Okay, I think on the judicial independence, for them to be really independent. Independent to who? Independent to what? Independent to the people of Thailand, that's true, but linked to the people who appointed them. So that's the origin part where, we copied a lot of models from the German model and the Austrian model. Before the confirmation of judges, you have to go through the lower house, which is linked to the people. That's how you keep them accountable. Transparency, so whatever is being decided, the verdict, it has to be transparent with, legal justification that a lot of people can get and access to, which is not the case in Thailand. And the accountability of independent organizations and judicial branch, that it's not like they can always intervene into 3 separation of power, can always intervene into executive power, can always intervene into legislative power. But they themselves, trying to keep us accountable, will also have to be accountable to someone also. And I think that's a couple of thousands of signatures that would be able to withdraw when a judge that is appointed by the generals doing something that is not supposed to be part of the law, for example. So if we can do that, we have to do constitutional amendment first, and change the origin, the transparency, and the accountability. Then question 5 will answer part of question 3, because you are talking about all the non-elected mechanisms to get rid of politicians. This is one thing about it. It's not really an ethics committee, I have to correct. It's actually Anti-Corruption Commission of Thailand that is using ethics as a justification to ban someone for the lifetime. It's also the same. They are part of the independent organization. The question that we should be asking is, again, independent to what? Independent to who, and if they have any linkage to the people or not. And the way you keep them accountable is origin, transparency, and accountability. Same answer or same consistency with question 5. In order to do question 5 and question 3, you have to persuade the people to tip the scale as per question 4. And I would take a different assessment, and I'm not going to blame you, because for the past 2 elections that I ran, I felt the difference on the voters. If it was the first election, people would ask about economy, would ask about the subsidies that you will give, how much would you give for a ton of rice, what are you going to do with my debt, and those would be the debate questions all the time. However, the second election 2 years ago, what would you do with the environment, the chronic drought and chronic flood that I experienced? What are your plans? It will be questions about education. It will be a question about labor rights. It will be a question about land justice and land distribution. How come 1% of Thais hold 79% of the wealth? And how come the federal government owns so much land? And how come I don't have a piece of land so that I can use that as an asset to collateralize into banks so that I can finally pay 7% like you guys rather than paying 20% per month from loan sharks. So I felt like the voter landscape is changing a lot, and if you are on ground, you're starting to feel it. And the way I get in touch and the way I mobilize rural voters is land justice and indigenous rights. If I talk about these kind of things, I might not have a populist, large sum amount of money to give you. By the way, it's helicopter money. It comes from taxpayers, money from the middle class. But I have ways to distribute land properly to you so that, it's not going to be an inequality access to land ownership anymore. You'll be able to do that. You'll be able to take care of your debt because, you'll be able to get into the system that allows you to pay 7% per annum rather than 20% per month. And that jives with them. And, started to change, or I don't want to say educate voters, but really go along with the voters, that they finally started to ask about drugs policy, environmental policy, justice policy, democracy, human rights even. So that's something that I can see within 3 to 4 years that is totally changed in terms of Thai voter landscape. They are becoming very sophisticated nowadays. So that's question 3, 4, 5 in a row. Consequently, inequality for women. For private sector, that's not an issue. If you look at the data, Thailand is probably top 5 in terms of CEOs or C-function level, that we have a lot of smart, capable, non-male leaders in the private sector. In the public sector, in politics, it's something that is quite hard. If I have a quota for women MPs, it becomes positive discrimination. That, finally I want to have a certain amount only dedicated for this gender only. I think it's important in the very beginning, but at the same time, if we are merit-based politics, it becomes a medium-term or long-term thing that the party or the parliament should allow environment or ecology that women can both do their job as part of their natural application as a mom or as a wife, but then at the same time opens for all genders, because we legalize same-sex marriage. It's not just about male or female, but for all genders to allow that kind of thing. But it's something that we discuss a lot in the party, whether, if you allow indigenous MP, if you allow female MP, in the beginning, yes, we'll have a better quota as a result, but that's kind of a positive discrimination on short term. We did it anyways, very quickly, but then again, we try to help them out with any other obligations that they might have out of their political life. So finally, they can prosper, and there's no need for quotas anymore. That should be the way politicians handle it. The first one was about Myanmar and Thailand. The difference is back maybe 50, 60 years ago, Ambassador, I think Thailand lost to Myanmar on two things. One is the rice export, and second is soccer. And yeah, because the democratic experiences that we went through different paths, I think that kind of similar to what happened to South Korea and North Korea. That is pretty convincing to me if you look at the long term. We might be feeling a bit despair short term today as we speak. But if you look at a very longer term span, it confirms that democracy is the best way forward, rather than autocratic regimes, whether we're looking at two countries or whether it's the professors, South Korea versus North Korea. You know, the self-correction mechanism that allows a second chance in the midterm or the next election, we can always begin again.
ไม่เหมือนเดิมแล้วเราจะชนะได้คือมีอยู่3อย่างอันที่1เราต้องขยันกว่าอันที่2เราต้องแม่นกว่าและอันที่3เราต้องเร็วกว่าแม่นกว่าขยันกว่าแล้วก็เร็วกว่าอันนี้คือจุดแข็งของพวกเรา